So why am I selling this lens and what do I think about it? How does the 25mm f1.4 Mark II lens impact the way I feel about the Micro Four Thirds system in general? In this video, I'm going to get into all that and more. Let's go. So I've been on YouTube for about a year by way of another channel that is focused on motorcycling. And that channel, I used action cameras and a pocket gimbal to film all of the content that I needed for that channel. But towards the end of the year, as I was taking a break and looking back on things, I decided that I needed a more pro look, and I was going to get a mirrorless camera and start to use that for my footage. And I did. I bought the Panasonic G9 Mark II and a trio of lenses, including this one. So the main lens that I wanted to use on the channel was the 9mm that I'm using for this video right now, and I am very, very fond of this lens, and I wanted to use the 25mm and the 42.5 primarily for B-roll duties. You know, I was hoping that I would get some of that Leica vibe, very sharp images, very smooth out of focus backgrounds, and I will say that this lens does both of those things very, very well. This is the second version of this lens. There is a first version. The second version has a couple of things about it that make it more desirable. One is it is weather sealed, so it's designed to reject dust and mild dusty operating conditions or just normal dust that you experience day to day, and it's designed to reject splashes from water or perhaps a light mist. If you're in the UK, if you're shooting outside a lot in a landscape type environment, perhaps you would find those features useful. Not that big of a deal to me, except for the dust thing. And what is useful though is this has a faster autofocus motor that does make it better for shooting B-roll if you're cranking the shutter speed, or sorry, the frame rate way up, which I tend to do. I like to shoot in 4K 120 and get that really smooth, surreal look when I'm talking about a detail or a feature of a motorcycle. So just like the Mark I lens, the Mark II lens has 9 elements in 7 groups, including 2 aspherical elements as well as an UHR element. Sorry, I don't know what that means. And it has all of that lovely Leica engineering that the first lens has. Again, the nice bokeh, the strong contrast, the lovely colors and all of that. But it does one thing that drives me absolutely crazy in addition to all of those things. The one flaw this lens has is it generates a ton of CA, and what's odd about it is it doesn't show up the way that I think it would, CA would normally show up. I'm used to seeing CA as a strong color separation around like a branch or a dark object against a bright background, and you do get some of that. But where this tends to show up the most for me in the way that I use it is patterns. So anytime you have a tight pattern or tight texture in the frame, I get this odd purple hue to the pattern. And I'll put some demo footage of that up right now. And it's very, very hard to correct in video. In a photograph, maybe it's easier to work with. I wouldn't know. I've not used this a lot for still photos. But in video, that's just a killer, man. It's really, really hard to deal with. It doesn't look very nice. Maybe some people wouldn't notice it very much, but I've been a photographer for a long time prior to shooting video, and it just drives me crazy. And usually you can stop down if you want to eliminate CA. And again, the odd thing here is that when I stop down as much as 2 stops, so this thing is f1.4 wide open, and I can stop down to say f2.8, maybe even f4, go on to a 3rd stop, and it's still there. It does clean up some, but it doesn't clean up all the way. And that is it is such a disappointment. It's a total deal killer for me. And I'm not even sure what to do about it on Micro Four Thirds. When I got into Micro Four Thirds, I knew I was going to have greater depth of field, so less subject to background and foreground separation when using a large aperture lens, because the format itself is smaller, so the physics play in favor of having more things in focus, all things being equal. I knew that. What I didn't think about was that I would have to fight CA problems where I had to stop down more than one stop, and by doing so I would end up having everything in focus, and I would have a resulting look to my video that wasn't very pro looking at all. I mean, I can get a great shot of what I want to get, but it just doesn't pop the way I want it to pop. Again, if you're not shooting a lot of very detailed things where there's a lot of texture, actually, this is a good example. Like, here's a speaker, and if I shoot this with this lens, and I'll try to do that, you get a lot of purple hue here. If you're not doing something like that, you're probably not going to notice this problem. If you want to shoot black and white, you probably are going to be able to work around this problem. It's not a very strong problem, it's just a very annoying problem. So let's back up a little bit. I did buy a Canon full frame about the same time that I bought this camera, and I really thought that I was going to prefer the Micro Four Thirds camera. The only reason I bring it up is when I compared this 25mm f1.4 to the Canon 50mm f1.8 STM lens, which is like $150 is what I paid for it versus 3 times that for this, the Canon doesn't show any CA in these situations, and if there is the tiniest bit in another situation, it can quickly be cleared up by just stopping it down a smidge. In fact, when I shoot video with that lens, I have to stop way down anyhow, so I end up shooting that lens at like f4 or f5.6, because if I don't, there's not enough depth of field at all. So like f4 on the Canon lens looks about the same as f1.4 on this lens. By stopping down to f4 on the Canon lens, you clear up any chromatic aberration or optical deficiency just by the nature of stopping down a lens 3 stops. So that really negates, in my opinion, a lot of the advantage for me personally by shooting Micro Four Thirds. You know, I get more flexibility with the depth of field on the Canon full frame camera. I get better optical properties, if you will, from even cheaper lenses. In a pinch, I have more light gathering ability because I have, you know, a full frame sensor which has a lower noise ratio pixel for pixel than a Micro Four Thirds sensor, or at least that's my experience. And surprisingly, the Canon system actually weighs less than this system. You know, the Canon lens weighs less than this lens, which is, I think it does anyway. I'll put it on a scale. We'll find out if I'm a liar. But it's remarkably lightweight, the Canon system is. The body is definitely lighter than the G9 Mark II. You do give up a lot of things. You give up the amazing stabilization that this camera has, which it is awesome. You know, you could take something like this and stabilize it, and it's almost like shooting on a gimbal. It's just remarkably stable. You give up the excellent ergonomics of this. The Canon ergonomics are not bad, but they are certainly not on par with the G9 Mark II. But yeah, this has just been just such a disappointment. So for now, this lens is up on eBay, and I suspect I'll let it go ahead and I'll let the transaction finish. But I'm really curious, are there any other options that are any good? Is the 20mm or the 25mm Panasonic branded lens, the 20f1.7 or 25f1.7, are those lenses any good? Are they gonna have the same CA issues I have with this lens, specifically with textures? And will they clean up if you stop down a little bit to the point you can't see the problem or notice the problem? I don't expect it to be completely gone if you pixel peep, but on a 4K video, if I'm filming something with texture and I stop down on the 20 f1.7 to say from f1.7 to f2.5, am I going to notice it? If I am, that means this camera is really just going to be a vlogging camera for me, and that really sucks because it's a really expensive vlogging camera. Now, it's a really freaking good one. I love what it does. I love the quality of the audio. I love the quality of the video with this 9mm lens, as long as the sun's not at my back, because there is a weird aberration that happens there that I'll talk about some other time. But God, it really sucks, y'all. I hate losing the 120 frame per second, you know, slow-mo look with this lens, because it's just such a sexy look, as long as you don't have something that has a lot of texture in the frame. what to do. Let me know in the comments below if you have any feedback or anything that would help me or help other Micro Four Thirds shooters. I'd love to see it. I'd love to hear about it. Give this video a thumbs up so that other people can find it. They may be having the same problem, or maybe they're shopping for this lens and they want to know if there's something they should watch out for. I'm not saying it's a bad lens. I think for photos it's fine, but for video, especially B-roll, I'm not a fan. That's it for today, y'all. Until next time, make good content.